Good afternoon, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hails this year's union budget, giving a strong push to agriculture and rural transformation. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calls old world order unrealistic, says power today has significantly spread across multiple dimensions. Israel strikes Beirut and Tehran as USA strikes on Iran to surge dramatically. In early round of vote counting in Nepal, Balin Shah-backed RSP leads in 40 seats, leads over CPN UML chairman and former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. And India secures a spot in T20 World Cup final after a thrilling 7-run victory over England at Mumbai's Wankhede Stadium. Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue 2026 in New Delhi on Friday, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said global order was largely shaped by the West. He added that expecting the world to remain frozen in the realities of 1945 or even 1989 was unrealistic, noting that power today has significantly spread across multiple dimensions.
This was the order by the West, for the West, from the West. Now, it doesn't mean that others didn't use it. Smart people did, smart countries did. But when we look back at these 70 years, I think the expectation that we can freeze a 1945 or a 1989 forever was a very unrealistic one.
Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue 2026, President of Finland, Alexander Stubb, said the ongoing conflicts show urgent need for a new multilateral moment. He added that the cost of current multipolar world is too high and nations must come together to forge a new covenant for peace and security.
We come to what is the call for peace and security. Well, we can see it right now. And this is what makes me so optimistic that we're going to have this new multilateral moment. And so I try to see the silver lining and say, well, because we're seeing what's going on in the Middle East, we're seeing what's going on in Ukraine, we're seeing what's going on in Sudan, therefore we need to come together to some kind of a new covenant, because actually the cost of multipolarity is too high right now.
In his remarks this morning, Minister of State for External Affairs India, Kirti Vardhan Singh, said India's decisions are guided by national interest and not by aligning with any single bloc.
India's decisions are guided by our national interests, not by aligning with any single bloc. This conviction is tested daily, from energy security to distant conflicts, where India consistently upholds autonomy while deepening partnerships. Assertion begins with sovereignty. Along our borders, we have made it clear that peace and tranquility are indispensable for normalcy in relations. The dignity of our citizens and the status of our frontiers are not variables to be traded.
And DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre joins us live from Raisina Dialogue. Akshay, what is the latest from Raisina Dialogue this edition, and how are themes of global south and multipolarity being articulated by the leaders?
Well, global south has become sort of a center stage here as far as the dialogues, the discussion, the deliberations that are happening at Raisina Dialogue amid all of these leaders, policymakers, academicians, journalists coming in from around the world in New Delhi. This year's theme is Sanskaram, that talks about assertiveness, that talks about dialogue, diplomacy, that talks about culture, that talks about traditions, that talks about heritage as well as other things that make cultures unique, countries unique, and their aspirations unique as well. And if you talk about the latest that's taking place here, the Finland President Alexander Stubb was here along with the External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who spoke about various issues about geopolitics, about assertiveness of the Global South, about how Global South has taken a center stage, especially after the push that took place at the G20 summit here in New Delhi, and the inclusion of the African Union as one of the member states of the G20 as well. How and why Global South is relevant, why it is important, and how the world is divided into, as it was described by the Finnish president, in three parts, that is Global West, Global East, and Global South. And when talking about Global South, it was agreed by all the sort of leaders who were present here that, in terms of diversity, in terms of culture, perhaps Global South is one region that is one of the most diverse one of the most culturally rich, one of the most, tolerant cultures as far as, others are concerned. Global South is talked about, the talk is regarding the concerns of the Global South, the issues, and how the world needs to be more empathetic towards the developing countries, so that they can also reach to a certain level of, human development index as well, and other areas of development, including infrastructure.
Right, talking about priorities of the Global South, Akshay, one such sort of long pending priority has been the reform of multilateral institutions, the UNSC in particular, India's rightful place in it. How is that theme being looked at by the leaders?
Well, it's quite essential to look at the reforms in major multilateral forums, especially when we talk about multilateral forums. One of the most important, one of the most central one remains the United Nations. And in the United Nations, there are several bodies, but when it comes to the most powerful one, and the one at the center of the United Nations is the United Nations Security Council, with 5 permanent member states who hold the veto powers, who essentially hold power to block any kind of resolution that is being passed, or ganging up against other countries who do not have the permanent membership here. That deprives rather a majority of the world from a sort of say in the global affairs, and that perhaps is the reason why we are seeing what we are seeing in the world in terms of brewing conflicts, in terms of erupting of new conflicts, in terms of global order going out of the window, in terms of international laws being violated by the powerful countries, and the entire world remains a sort of hostage to the whims and the fancies of these few permanent countries without representation to a large part of the population in the world, including India. That is the largest population in the world. Doesn't have a veto or a permanent seat at the UNSC. These seats were decided way back after the World War II and still remain unchanged, and that is why the disparity remains in terms of decision making, and resulting into a misunderstanding of the majority of the world. That is also making the UNSC as well as the United Nations fail in bringing resolution to many of the conflicts that it was originally planned to undertake. So reforms are required. In fact, now other major countries, including the Finnish president, also echoed the voice for more inclusions in the permanent seats, as well as inclusion of countries like India, who will not only strengthen the body, but also bring a more more diversification to these strong bodies, as well as a voice of peace, right, a voice of sanity in the erupting chaos in the world.
Akshay, thank you for joining us with those updates. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday addressed post-budget webinar on the theme Agriculture and Rural Transformation via video conferencing. This webinar brought together stakeholders across key sectors, including agriculture, animal husbandry, dairy, fisheries, rural livelihoods, Discussions focused on promoting high-value agriculture by unlocking the potential of crops such as cashew, coconut, sandalwood, agarwood, almonds, walnut and pine nuts. It also deliberated on opportunities offered by Bharat Vistar, the AI-powered digital public infrastructure meant for agriculture. Speaking during the webinar, Prime Minister focused on leveraging India's diverse agro-climatic zones to boost high-value agriculture, with special emphasis on region-specific crops such as coconut, cashew, cocoa and sandalwood.
हमारे पास डाइवर्स क्लाइमेट है, हमें इसका पूरा फायदा उठाना है। एग्रो क्लाइमेटिक जोन, उस विषय में हम बहुत समृद्ध हैं। इस साल का बजट इन सब बातों के लिए अनगिनत नए अवसर देने वाला बजट है। प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाने की दिशा तय करता है और एक्सपोर्ट ट्रेंड को बढ़ावा देता है। बजट में हमने हाई वैल्यू एग्रीकल्चर पर फोकस किया है। नारियल, काजू, कोको, चंदन ऐसे उत्पादों के रीजनल स्पेसिफिक प्रमोशन की बात कही है। केरल के किसानों को अतिरिक्त लाभ हो, तमिलनाडु के किसानों को अतिरिक्त लाभ हो, इसलिए इस बार कोकोनट पर एक विशेष बल दिया गया है, जिसका फायदा आने वाले दिनों में हमारे इन किसानों को मिलेगा।
Prime Minister highlighted the immense potential of the fisheries sector, noting that increasing production could not only boost exports, but also transform the lives of rural fishery community and diversify rural incomes.
एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ाने में एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर फिशरीज सेक्टर का पोटेंशियल भी है। भारत दुनिया का दूसरा सबसे बड़ा मछली उत्पादक देश भी है। आज हमारे अलग अलग तरह के जलाशय, तालाब, ये सब मिलाकर लगभग 4 लाख टन मछली उत्पादन होता है, जबकि इसमें 20 लाख अतिरिक्त उत्पादन की संभावना मौजूद है। अब विचार कीजिए आप, 4 लाख टन से हम अतिरिक्त 20 लाख टन जोड़ दें तो हमारे गरीब मछुआरे भाई बहन हैं, उनकी जिंदगी कैसी बदल जाएगी। हमारे पास रूरल इनकम को डाइवर्सिफाई करने का अवसर है। फिशरीज एक्सपोर्ट ग्रोथ का बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म बन सकता है। दुनिया में इसकी मांग है।
In other news, India's representative to the United Nations, P. Harish, briefed the Group of 77 and China on the outcomes of AI Impact Summit held this month in New Delhi. The briefing was held alongside the UN Secretary General's envoy on technology, Amandeep Singh Gill. During the meeting, India highlighted the vision of Prime Minister Modi for responsible artificial intelligence through the MANA framework. India reiterated that artificial intelligence should be treated as a global common good, promoting a human-centric approach that benefits societies across the world. The AI summit took place in February this year. Indian Air Force has acknowledged the loss of squadron leader Anuj and Fleet Lieutenant Purvesh Durgakar, who sustained fatal injuries in the Sukhoi 30 crash. Indian Air Force personnel expressed condolences and stand firmly with the bereaved family in this time of grief. Earlier on Thursday, a Sukhoi 30 fighter jet of the Indian Air Force was reported missing from radar contact after taking off from eastern Assam's Jorhat. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh expressed his condolences to the bereaved families. He said that courage and service to the nation will always be remembered with pride and gratitude. India and Japan are strengthening their defence cooperation through joint military exercise in Uttarakhand. The 7th edition of India-Japan joint exercise, Dharma Guardian, is currently underway at the Foreign Training Centre in Chaubatia in Almora district of Uttarakhand.
The 7th edition of the India-Japan joint military exercise, Dharma Guardian, is currently underway at the Foreign Training Centre in Chaubatia village of Uttarakhand's Almora district. Around 120 personnel, each from the Indian Army and the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force, are participating in the exercise aimed at strengthening coordination and joint operational capabilities in semi-urban environments. As part of the drills, troops are carrying out tactical activities, including establishing operational bases, intelligence and surveillance operations, setting up of vehicle checkposts, and conducting cordon and search operations. The exercise focuses on enhancing interoperability and sharing operational experiences between the two forces.
India-Japan Joint Military Exercise Dharma Guardian का ये 7th edition उत्तराखंड में चौबटिया के
The 7th edition of India-Japan Joint Military Exercise Dharma Guardian is being held in the Chobatia area of Uttarakhand at the Foreign Training Node. The exercise began on 24th February 2026 and will continue until 9th March 2026. In this joint military exercise, company contingents, one each from both India and Japan, are participating with great enthusiasm. The troops are undergoing training focused on semi-conventional operations in a semi-urban environment. The main objective of this exercise is to enhance interoperability and jointness between the armed forces of India and Japan. It also aims to facilitate the sharing of best practices and operational experiences while helping both sides refine their tactics, techniques, and procedure.
तथा अपने टैक्टिक्स, टेक्निक्स और प्रोसीजर्स को और रिफाइन करना है.
Military officials say such joint exercises will also strengthen mutual trust and understanding between the armed forces of India and Japan. According to senior army officials, the exercise, which will continue until March 9th, signifies growing defense cooperation between India and Japan and their commitment to regional security.
And we're heading for a short break. There's more coming up.
Nature is sounding the alarm, and when our ecosystems are under pressure, our lives are impacted too. In today's episode, we take a look at how these two are coming together to help us adapt and respond to a changing world.
When you conduct agriculture with Kadai cattle, you don't need to provide any extra materials or any other natural inputs to that field.
The AI does not see animals in the pictures, which then have to be found by humans. But also there are certain species, especially rare species, where we don't have a lot of pictures to train the AI, that the AI then cannot classify in turn.
Thanks to Santosh's information and awareness classes, that myth has disappeared. Now if we encounter a dangerous snake like a cobra, we immediately call Santosh to perform a rescue.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. The newly formed Rashtriya Swatantra Party, led by former rapper Balendra Shah, was leading in the early counting of votes in Nepal's first general elections since the violent mass protest. The RSP is leading in 40 of the 57 constituencies. Former Prime Minister Oli's CPN UML is leading in 5 seats, while Nepali Congress, led by Gagan Thapa, is in third position with leads in 4 seats. The Nepali Communist Party, led by former Premier Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda, is leading in just 2 seats, and pro-monarchist Rashtriya Prajatantra Party is ahead on 1 seat. As the conflict enters its 7th day, the Israel-US-Iran conflict, heavy attacks were reported in Beirut and Tehran on Friday after Israel said it was hitting the regime infrastructure in a new phase of war it launched with the United States against Iran. The conflict has also drawn in Israel's neighbor Lebanon after Iranian-backed Hezbollah launched missiles in retaliation for the war. Israel has carried out waves of airstrikes in Lebanon, killing 123 people, the Lebanese Health Ministry informed. Earlier on Friday, Iranian media reported heavy strikes in capital Tehran shortly after Israel announced it was striking the regime infrastructure in the city. In Iran, an internet blackout has led to limited information on how the country's population is weathering the assault. Israel's military chief had earlier warned the conflict was moving on to the next phase and pledged to further dismantle the regime and its military capabilities. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also announced firepower over Iran and over Tehran is about to surge dramatically, while Admiral Brad Cooper, the head of Central Command responsible for U.S. forces in the West Asia, said that Iran's strikes were diminishing. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard said they had fired missiles towards Tel Aviv after an earlier wave of explosions that caused a blaze at a residential building in central Israeli city. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi struck a defiant tone on Thursday, saying Tehran had not sought a ceasefire and did not see any reason why we should negotiate with the United States. In the ongoing conflict, Iran is also targeting neighboring Gulf countries, including Bahrain and Qatar. Doha said its air defenses thwarted a drone attack targeting the U.S. airbase at Al Udeid. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani visited National Command Center of the Ministry of Interior on Thursday. He was briefed on the country's crisis and emergency management system. While in Bahrain on Thursday, an Iranian missile strike sparked a blaze at main state-owned oil refinery. 2 hotels and a residential building in the capital, Manama, were also targeted. Meanwhile, United Kingdom is temporarily withdrawing some staff and their dependents from its Bahrain embassy. Sri Lanka Navy offloaded 208 crew members from second Iranian vessel off the island's coast a day earlier, following a U.S. submarine strike on first Iranian warship in the same region that left 87 people dead and several others missing. President Anurakumara Dissanayake told a press briefing that the ship was near the port of Colombo in the country's exclusive economic zone, but outside its maritime boundary. The first ship, Iris Dena, was sunk on 4th of March, 19 nautical miles off Sri Lanka's southern port city of Galle. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said on Friday that 3 of their defence personnel were on board a United States submarine that sank an Iranian warship with a torpedo in the Indian Ocean, but stressed they did not take part in the attack. PM Albanese told Sky News Australians were on board as part of training linked to the AUKUS defence pact between Australia, US and Britain. He also said no Australian personnel have participated in any offensive action against Iran. Australia, a close US ally, has ruled out any military role in the conflict, but has said it would support efforts aimed at preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has hinted that Tehran was reaching out to the United States about making a deal. Trump touted US military actions in Iran, saying they were destroying Tehran's missiles and drones capability, and that their navy is gone 24 ships in 3 days, as he called on Iranian diplomats to request asylum and help shape a better country. But Trump's claims are yet again rejected by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who said that Tehran has not asked for a ceasefire. Araghchi said his country was prepared for any ground invasion, warning that such a move would spell disaster for the country's enemies. He added that they are waiting for the US. Tehran, however, made it clear it had entered negotiations with Washington despite doubts over US intentions, but was attacked before the agreed timeline for the talks concluded. While US says the goal of its current military engagement with Iran is a regional transition that ensures West Asia no longer poses a global security threat. Amidst these developments, Delhi Airport has issued a travel advisory amid ongoing tensions in West Asia. In its advisory, the airport said westbound international flights may face delays or changes in schedule. Passengers have been advised to contact their respective airlines for latest flight updates before heading to the airport. The airport has also urged passengers to rely only on official communication channels for verified information. For any updates, passengers can visit the official website www.newdelhiairport.in. Let's now turn to sports. Defending champion India iced the third T20 World Cup as they made it to the finals for the 4th time, this time defeating England in the semi-finals on Thursday. India will face New Zealand in the finals on Sunday. Youngster Jacob Bethel's maiden run went in vain as the excellent fight by England could not cross the huge total of 253 runs by India, losing 7 wickets as the Indian bowlers showcased a brilliant defence. Sanju Samson, scintillating 89 of 42, laid the platform for India to pile up a massive 253 runs for 7 wickets against England in the T20 World Cup semi-finals in Mumbai. The in-form opener, who made 97 not out against West Indies in the previous match, hit 7 sixes and 8 fours to thrill a raucous home crowd at the famous Wankhede Stadium. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan this QR code on your screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.